Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening all. Welcome to Swaroop IT Solutions. So this is the first video we are launching for the technical solutions tips and tricks through Swaroop IT Solutions. So this is a technical video series mainly oriented on Windows, administration, IT solutions, technical tips and tricks. So this is the first video of this series. Now in this particular video, we will be learning how to enable the nested virtualization inside the Hyper-V virtual environment. So welcome to Swaroop IT Solutions. So in this video, we will learn how to enable nested virtualization inside Windows 2022 Hyper-V server. So let's start. So in this procedure, we will learn following major steps. First step will be having an introduction to the nested virtualization. We will try to understand what is nested virtualization. Second is we'll be installing an Hyper-V role on our bare metal, that is our physical machine, and that will be treated as an Hyper-V host. Next step is we will be installing Windows Server 2022 server inside the Hyper-V role. Once we are installing the Hyper-V, through it we will be installing one more server VM. Next step is we will be enabling virtualization capabilities inside Windows Server 2022 server VM. That means inside the virtual machine we will be again enabling the virtualization capabilities. We will be installing the Hyper-V role inside the virtual machine of Windows Server 2022. So as I said, next step is we will be installing our Hyper-V role inside Windows Server 2022 virtual machine. That will be treated as Hyper-V guest. So on the second step, we will be using our bare metal system as an Hyper-V host. On the fifth step, we will be using our Windows Server 2022 VM as an Hyper-V guest. But that will be still getting used as an Hyper-V server. Next is inside that Hyper-V guest, we will be installing Windows 10 version 22H2 nested VM inside our Windows 2022 Hyper-V VM. So through Hyper-V guest, we will be installing a further nested virtualization machine which will be running on Windows 10 22H2 version. And the last step is we will be enabling the internet access on our nested VM, that is Windows 10 22H2 machine. Okay, so all these steps we will be doing from the scratch. I will explain each and every step in detail. So do watch this video till the end. Don't skip any particular step. I will be covering our practical steps, that is a mandatory one, but I will be clearing some of the theoretical part also. As an IT person, we are giving less preference to the theory part, but here in this video I will be covering the theory part also, and then we will be moving on to the practical steps. So starting with the introduction part, what is nested virtualization? So again, as I said, this will be a theoretical part. So what is nested virtualization? We will be trying to understand what is nested virtualization. So nested virtualization is the process of running virtual machine or machines inside virtual environment. That means I will be installing a virtual machine as a normal VM, and inside that VM I will be further installing one more hypervisor role, and through that hypervisor role I will be installing a further virtual machine through virtual environment of Hyper-V. So that is called a nested virtualization. What does that exactly mean? So here is a particular logical diagram which I have taken from the Microsoft site, and just to explain you what this particular diagram is all about. So the first layer is your hardware layer. Now I have taken this particular diagram from the Microsoft site because I don't want to go for any third party sites or any particular by my own logical way, because the Microsoft is having the product called Hyper-V within them. So they are the best source for any particular authenticated information. So this particular diagram, as we can see, the bottom layer is your hardware layer. That means the real physical machine layer, okay, containing your real physical CPU with virtualization technology extensions, VTX capability. Now what is virtualization technology extensions, what is VT, what is VTX, we will just see a bit later, but as of now you can just note down that our physical machine, the CPU, is having the VTX capability, that is virtual technology extension, and this is important, okay, because this is one of the main prerequisite of your nested virtualization, that your CPU should be VTX enabled, not VT, VTX. Okay. Now next is, once I am having that hardware layer and CPU in place, machine is in place, the hypervisor layer which is working on level 0 and which will have our virtual CPU. So this particular CPU will be getting converted, the physical CPU will be getting converted to virtual CPU once we are enabling this hypervisor layer. Now there are various ways how to enable this particular layer. There are various softwares, there are various applications, there are various let's say technologies which will be helping us out to enable this hypervisor layer. Now which technology or which software or which feature we are using over here is Hyper-V. Okay. Now as we can already know, as we are already knowing it, that there are some other softwares also, as we can measure it out. There is ESX also, there is Oracle VirtualBox also. Now all these technologies are working on hypervisor layers, but there is a difference. ESX is directly working on level 0 and Hyper-V or Oracle VirtualBox is working on level 1, that is your through OS layer. So first you need to install the root OS, that can be, if you're let's say using Hyper-V as in this case, so you need to install the root OS first. So which root OS we are using over here? We are using Windows Server 2022. Okay, that will be our root OS. Once that is done, we will be installing the Hyper-V role on that root OS. Okay. Once that is done, that inside that particular Hyper-V we will be installing one more VM, and we will be installing one more hypervisor role or Hyper-V role inside that virtual machine. So my hypervisor role is level 0, my root OS is level 1, but I will be again installing one more layer that will be running on level 2 as my guest OS. So what will be my guest OS or what will be my root OS 2? That will be again a Windows Server 2022, but that is running as a virtual machine inside my Hyper-V. And inside that Hyper-V, if that virtual machine is running, I will be again installing one more Hyper-V role. That will be your nested Hyper-V role. Now this seems a bit complicated or a bit confusing at first glance, but we'll be doing it absolutely by scratch. We'll be doing step by step, easy to understand on a layman language. Each step I will try to explain by practical means. Okay, so don't get confused, don't get tense. Okay, So this is just a logical diagram to understand. So our hardware layer that is working on level 0, our root OS that is working on level 1, that is your first level of operating system, and then our nested virtualization is working on level 2. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Now, as I said, what is VT and VTX technology? So difference between VT and VTX technology. Okay, so if you guys are working on virtualization technology or in IT for more than, let's say, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years plus, like me, you must be knowing that how virtualization technology grown up over the years. So initially, when virtualization technology got introduced in the midst of 2000, on the starting years of 2000 and in between 2000 to 2005. So initially, the hardware manufacturers started to manufacture the CPUs with the VT technology. VT means virtualization technology. That means you can enable the level 0 with the virtualization capability, and you can install one virtual machine through it or many virtual machine through it if your hardware is having that much capability, like your hard disk and RAMs and all. Okay, but VTX is something different. VTX means it is allowing you to install the virtual technology capabilities or hypervisor layer inside the virtual machine. Okay, so we will just go step by step. So a simple VT, that is virtual technology capability, allows a physical resource like your CPU or RAM or HDD to be shared among the multiple virtual machines that will be working on layer 0 to layer 1. Layer 0 is your hardware layer and layer 1 is your OS layer or application layer. Okay, so a simple VT technology allows you to share the physical resource with the multiple virtual machines. That is the first level of your virtual technology. Now, whereas VTX, that is virtual technology extensions, allows virtual devices like virtual CPU, virtual RAM or virtual hard disk to be shared with further nested virtual instances like virtual machines, virtual apps, etc. Now, once we are enabling layer 0 to layer 1, a physical CPU is getting converted to virtual CPU. A physical RAM is getting converted to virtual RAM. A physical hard disk is getting converted into a virtual hard disk. But then again, if I want to share this virtual CPU with further nested virtual machines, that will be a nested virtualization. So I am first sharing my physical CPU to many virtual CPU instances, and again each virtual CPU instance I can further share it with the nested virtual machines or virtual apps. As I said, this may sound a bit confusing, but don't worry, once we are starting the practical things, everything will get clear. Okay. So next term we need to understand is NAT. What is NAT? Network Address Translation. It's a full form of NAT. Now what is NAT and why do we require it in this particular Hyper-V nested virtualization? So imagine one scenario that your organization is having 25 client machines and which are all are having internal LAN IP addresses, but you need to give the internet access to those machines because users need to access let's say Office 365 apps or their cloud environment and all these things. So for all these requirements we require internet access, but you don't want to assign the public IP address directly to those 25 client systems. So what you will do? So NAT is a technology which will help you out in this particular scenario. So what is NAT? So NAT is a service that enables communication between your internal or private IP address with the cloud or internet. So NAT translates the private IP addresses in an internal network to public IP address before data packets are sent to public internet or cloud network. So NAT is like a binding between your private IP address and public IP address. So as its full form suggests, network address translation, it is actually translating your internal IP address communication with the internet or cloud IP. Okay. So what are the advantages of nested virtualization? So as we are doing the lab setup for nested virtualization, we should know that what are the advantages for those nested virtualization in order to implement it in a production. What I will achieve for nested virtualization. So the first advantage is resource efficiency. So nested virtualization allows multiple virtual machines to run on a single virtual machine or instance, thus reducing a hardware requirement and improving resource utilization. So in a single VM, I can run multiple virtual machines inside that particular virtual machine. So the resource utilization will be more effective in that case. Next is flexibility. So nested virtualization enables the creation of complex virtual environments which can be used for testing, development and experimentation purposes. Okay, so it also allows you to use different hypervisors and operating systems within a single virtual environment. What does that mean? So if you are going for a nested virtualization, it will be easy to build a lab setup for development purpose, for testing purpose. Additionally, you can use different hypervisors within primary hypervisor. Let's say I'm using Hyper-V as a primary hypervisor, but I can create a lab setup inside one virtual machine through Hyper-V. I can create a lab setup for ESX also, which is a whole different hypervisor. So in that case, it will be easy for me to develop that particular testing plan through nested virtualization. Okay, so flexibility. So you can test multiple hypervisor environments within a single virtual environment. Third is your isolation. So nested virtualization provides better isolation between virtual machines as each VM can run its own hypervisor. So this can improve the security and prevent the potential conflicts between different VMs. So what does that mean? Suppose I am having 5 different sites at 5 different locations. Okay. So what I will be requiring if I want to create virtual machines for 25 users per site. So total 125 users are there. Example I am just giving. So I am requiring 5 virtual machines host or 5 physical machines. But in nested virtualization, I can only have one virtual host, that is your physical host machine, and I can have 5 different virtual machines which can further be segregated according to their site segment. Okay, so in this way, I'm actually better utilizing the resources also, and I'm using the isolation also. One site cannot interfere with the another site, because their segments and other things I can define it within the nested virtualization virtual environment. Okay, so in this way the isolation will also be helpful in nested virtualization. Next one is scalability. Of course, nested virtualization allows for using scaling of virtual environments, as additional VMs can be added without the need of additional physical hardware. So as I said, without the physical virtual host addition, you can actually add multiple VMs, and within that virtual machines you can add further nested virtual machines, nested VMs. And last but not the least, of course, cost effectiveness. So by using nested virtualization, organizations can reduce their hardware and maintenance cost, as multiple virtual environments can be run on a single physical machine. Right, so only one physical machine and multiple virtual environments, so that will reduce your overall cost also. So what are the prerequisites for our nested virtualization for this particular lab setup, what will be our prerequisites? So the first and the main prerequisite is of course a physical server or a workstation system with at least 64 GB RAM. 128 GB is recommended. My physical machine is having 128 GB. Why do I require this much RAM? A lot of RAM, because we will be using the RAM further for the nested virtual machines also. That much RAM we will be requiring. So at least 64 GB is recommended by today's standards, but 128 GB I'm having in my system. The second prerequisite, of course, as we have discussed before, the latest i7 or later CPU with VTX support. So we have already seen what is the difference between VT and VTX. So VTX means Virtual Technology Extension. This capability is allowing you to go for the nested virtualization feature. If your CPU is older or only supporting VT, it might not support your nested virtualization environment. So latest CPU, anyways the latest CPUs, most of the CPUs are coming with the latest hardware standards, are having VTX support. But in case if you are using old hardware or CPU, do check that it is supporting your VTX, not VT, VTX technology. Now next prerequisite is our root OS prerequisite. Since we are using Hyper-V, so we will be requiring a virtual machine environment for Hyper-V, and which is requiring a root OS as Windows 2019 or 2022 server OS. For this lab setup, I will be using 2022 server OS. That is with GUI mode and in data center. Okay. Next is your Hyper-V version 8 or later. So if you are a bit older guy in IT, so you must be knowing that Hyper-V have been introduced in 2008 or 2012 on the first time, 2008 R2 I guess, and then the versions are getting upgraded every now and then. So you should be having Hyper-V version 8 or later for enabling your nested virtualization. So do check with the latest OS, it should be greater than 8 only. So I'm using the latest OS like Windows 2022, which should be having the version 8 or even 9 or 10. We will see what kind of version 2022 server OS will be having. But the minimum version requirement for nested virtualization is version 8. And then the next is of course your Windows 10 OS ISO, which will be used as an nested virtual machine client. Okay, you can use Windows 11 also, but I am using Windows 10 for this particular lab setup. So using that Windows 10 ISO, will be installing one virtual machine, which will be our nested virtual machine. Okay, and the last but not the least is your internet access. So you will be requiring an internet access on your physical server, primary physical server, which will be then be getting populated layer wise to your Hyper-V, then inside that Hyper-V your second Hyper-V server, and then to the client machine. So on a topmost level on a physical server you should have a internet access. Okay, so those are the prerequisites. Now coming to the lab setup. So for this particular lab setup, what all systems we will be using, what are their configurations, what are their host names. So this is the table. So the first machine over here we'll be using is our physical host, that is Windows 2022 base. This host name I have given as for the understanding purpose. Operating system Windows 2022 data center. I will be installing on main machine, our physical host. Role for this particular machine, it will be our Hyper-V host physical, the physical machine Hyper-V host. Hardware configuration, I am having this hardware configuration for my current system. I am having 1 TB hard disk, latest i7 CPU with VTX. Again, I'm underlining this importance, VTX technology, and 128 GB RAM. Okay, this is my physical machine's configuration. So what will be my IP? So I will be giving 3 IP addresses over here. One is my primary internal IP, second is my internal IP but on a second subnet or second network, and third one will be my ISP public IP that will be for internet access. Okay, and the system model, what is the model for this? This is a physical server or a workstation. Okay, second machine, the host name will be Win 2022 HYP. This particular machine will be having the same OS, Windows 2022 data center server. Role will be again Hyper-V host, but the environment it is having its virtual machine. So within the virtual machine we will be installing a Hyper-V role. Okay, so it is a virtual machine which is acting as an Hyper-V host. Next is our hardware configuration. So while creating this particular virtual machine, I will be assigning 200 GB BSDs. One is primary for the OS and one is for the storage or the nested VM. Then virtual CPU, of course, which will be getting populated through our physical CPU as we have discussed earlier. So one virtual CPU will be there for this particular virtual machine, and I will be assigning 96 GB of RAM, virtual RAM, okay, for this particular HYP. Out of 128 GB real physical RAM, I will be assigning 96 GB for this particular VM because it is requiring to have this much RAM for Hyper-V hosting. Now this 128 GB or 96 GB seems to be on a higher side, but since I'm having that much of RAM available, so I'm assigning it. Depending upon your lab setup, you may decide how much RAM to be availed for this particular virtual machine which will be acted as a Hyper-V host. The system model for this particular machine is virtual machine, of course. And now the third machine, that is Win10CL hostname. It will be running on Windows 10 22H2, and the role it will be having in Hyper-V client or Hyper-V virtual machine, but it is a nested virtual machine. You can see physical, you can see virtual machine, and this will be further a nested virtual machine, Windows 10. Okay. Now hardware configuration is like 100 GB VSDX and 16 GB of RAM that I will be assigning through Hyper-V. Okay, and the IP address it is having is internal IP address like 10.1.2.201. It is the private IP address I will be assigning to this particular virtual machine, nested virtual machine, but I will be not changing it. And having that private IP address, no other IP address will be assigned to this machine. Having that IP address, we will be having the internet access for this machine. I will show you how we can browse the internet through this nested virtual machine. Okay, and of course the system model is nested virtual machine. Okay, so this will be our lab setup. So now we are starting the practicals. Enough of theory concepts. Once we are starting the practical, I will explain each and every step in detail, and on the same time I will be doing it on a practical mode. Okay, so step 1, on physical server or workstation we need to install the Windows Server 2019 or 2022 as an base OS, as an root OS. Okay, so this particular step I have already done. So I'm coming back to my physical machine. This is my physical machine. If I'm showing you the configuration of this physical machine, you can see over here the host name is already given, Windows 2022 base. Okay, it is having 128 GB RAM and it is running on Windows Server 2022 data center. Okay, so this is my physical machine or a physical Hyper-V host. It will be acting as a physical Hyper-V host. So we have already installed this server OS or base OS on my physical machine. Okay, Next step is, once base system is up with Win 2022 server OS, give an appropriate host name to system. So I have already given this Win 2022 base. I have already given this particular host name to my physical machine. So you can see the host name is already base. Okay, this particular step is also completed. Now next step, on Windows 2022 base OS, open Server Manager and click on Add Roles and Features. So from this I will be starting my actual practicals. Okay, so I'm coming back to my desktop and I'm opening Server Manager. So you can open it through Start also, you can open it through Run also. The Run, you can just type Server Manager, no space, and just press enter. So Server Manager is open. Now what is saying, click on Add Roles and Features. Okay, so I'm clicking on Add Roles and Features. Next step is, on before you begin an installation type Windows, click Next. So for the first two Windows, we just need to click Next. So before you begin and then installation type role based, Next. Next is, on server selection window, make sure that the server manager is showing the physical server's correct host name. Okay, so we will see it is showing the correct host name as Win22 base, and this IP address is my internet router IP address. So this machine, physical machine, is already having an internet access, as you can see over here. Okay, so I will press next over here. Coming back to our slide, next step is, on server roles window, select Hyper-V server role and add features and click next. So over here I need to select the Hyper-V role. Remember, this is a physical machine. Okay, I'm just selecting Hyper-V role and it is asking me to add the required features, so I will say add features. Now it is selected, I will say next. Next is, on features window, select .NET Framework 3.5 and ASP.NET 4.8 and click next. So I think I have already selected this one when I have installed the operating system. You can see over here .NET is already installed 3.5 and ASP.NET 4.548 also installed. Okay, so I will just say next over here. Next step, so on Hyper-V virtual switches migration and default stores Windows, click next. So we will be not changing any particular values over here. So Hyper-V, I will say next. Virtual switches. Now the important part over here, it is showing my physical Ethernet. I don't need to select it. Don't select it because it will automatically create a virtual switch over there. So no need to select anything, and we don't want to select as of now. Okay, so I'm not selecting anything. On migration also, I will be just leaving all the default options as it is. As of now, I don't want to migrate any live machines or any virtual machine, so I will not click on this option. Leave it as it is. And of course, default stores. So default location for virtual machine configuration files and other default values, I'm leaving it as it is. Okay, I'm clicking next. Now it is coming to the confirmation part. Coming back to our slide. So on confirmation window, click on specify alternate source and enter the as a DVD drive, sources SSX and click OK. Now why do we require this particular sources SSX part? Because in the previous step we have selected .NET 3.5 and 4.8, but since it was already installed, so no need to go for the alternate source also over here. Okay, so I can simply say install over here. Okay, I will not specify any alternate because .NET 3.5 and 4.8 requires that particular alternate source path, but it is already installed, so I am not specifying anything. I am directly clicking install. Let's see, it will get installed. So it is installing our Hyper-V role. Okay, by the time we will see what will be our next step. Okay, so on main confirmation window, click install. That we have already done, right? And the next step is, once required roles and features got installed, that is Hyper-V, click on close and restart the base system once. Okay, so you can see over here it is already installed. A restart is pending on Windows 2022 base, that is our physical machine, because Hyper-V role requires a restart. Okay, so I'm pausing this video as of now. I'm restarting this machine and I will come back with the further steps. Okay, so as of now I'm ending this video and I will be coming back with the next part. Hello, welcome back to the Swaroop IT Solutions. So my main system got rebooted after the Hyper-V installation. Now we will move on to the next step. So we have completed up to the step 11, where we have installed the Hyper-V role on our main system. Now let's move on to the next step. So next step is, once the Windows 2022 base system restarts, open Hyper-V Manager console and right click on server hostname and click new virtual machine. So this is my Hyper-V console for Windows 2022 base. That is my physical machine. I can open it through server manager. I can open it through the search over here. I can just type Hyper-V Manager. I can open it over here. So I have just placed it on taskbar so that we will be opening it more straight away. So I'm right clicking. Let's a new virtual machine. Next is on before you begin window, click next. So before you begin, it's an introductory window, click next. On specify name and location window, provide virtual machine name and appropriate VM storing location and click next. So virtual machine name, I'm just giving it as Win2022 HYP. This will be our virtual machine which will be getting hosted as an Hyper-V server. Okay, so Win22 HYP and say browse, and I will just create one folder on my secondary partition called Win 2022 HYP. Select folder. Okay, click next. Next step is, we need to specify the generation. So select generation 2 and click next. So generation 2 is in latest standard. If you are having a legacy OS, you can choose the generation 1, but as of now we are all using the latest OS, that is Windows Server 2022 and Windows 10 also, so we will be using the generation 2 only. So I will choose the generation 2 over here and click next. Now next is assign memory window, specify memory as 96 GB and click next. So for this Windows 2022 HYP, which will be our secondary Hyper-V server, I will be giving the 96 GB RAM because I am having physical RAM of 120 GB. So out of which I can assign 96 GB. It's not a problem. So I will give it 96 GB. So 96 GB converted into MB, it is coming around 98304. Let me just recollect. Yes, 98304. So I'm just giving this much and say next. So on configure networking window, leave the default value as not connected and click next. So as of now, we are not selecting any network connectivity and we are just putting it as not connected and say next. So there is a small note, we will configure our Hyper-V physical and virtual networking connectivity on Hyper-V host later on. Okay, so as of now, not connected, I am selecting next. So next is configure virtual hard disk window. Make sure that it's showing the correct VHDX storing path and specify the VHDX size value as 100 GB and click next. So it is currently showing the correct name. Our VM names VHD only. It is showing the correct path because we have selected the external partition J drive for our VM storing path, and it is showing the correct virtual hard disk complete path also. In the memory, I will just select, in the VHDX size, I will just select 100 GB. So that should be enough for the primary OS partition. Next. So next is on installation options windows, select install an operating system later and click next. So I will just select install an operating system later and click next. Verify the summary and click finish. So we'll verify the summary. Our VM name is Windows 2022 HYP, generation 2, memory 96 GB, network we have not selected it, not connected, hard disk path which is a default path for the VM storing location, and operating system we will be installing later, and I will just say finish. Okay. Now double click on newly created Windows 2022 HYP VM and click on File Settings. So our VM is ready on our primary physical Hyper-V host. Our first VM is ready, Windows 2022 HYP. I will just double click it. I will just go to File Settings. Now on Windows 2022 HYP VM settings window, click on SCSI controller, DVD drive, add. So I will just put it on DVD drive and I will say add. So on DVD drive window, select the image file and map the Windows 2022 server ISO. So we need to install the Windows 2022 server. So we will map the OS ISO to this VM. OS MS server. Okay. So this is the latest one. Data center GUI updated server 2022. I will say apply over here. Okay. Now still on VM settings window, click on firmware and set the first boot device as a DVD. So I will firmware DVD drive, move up, apply, OK. Next step is start the Windows 2022 HYP VM and install the Windows Server 2022 OS as usual. So I will now start the Windows 2022 HYP VM, pressing enter just to boot it from the DVD, and now the OS is getting installed. It's a straightforward installation, so I'll just say next, install now. I don't have a product key as of now, so selecting that option, accepting the agreement, next, custom, and here you can see our virtual hard disk 100 GB it is showing. Just doing anything else, I'm just selecting next, so it will automatically format and start installing the OS on it. So I'm just pausing this video as of now. Once this OS is getting installed and ready, I will come back to you with the next step. Hello, welcome back. So our Windows 2022 HYP OS is ready after installation. It is just asking me to assign an administrator password, so I'm just assigning an administrator password. Just saving my display settings. Now I'm just logging through administrator. Remember, this is a virtual machine on the first virtual machine on our real physical server. Okay, so this is a virtual machine. So next, move on to the next step. So once Windows 2022 HYP VM is up with Windows 2022 Server OS, give an appropriate host name to the system. So host name will be the same, Win 2022 HYP. So let's give a host name to our VM. Okay. Now the OS has started first time, so it is showing the Server Manager console and other pop-up windows. I want to disable it, so I will go to Manage Server Manager. Do not start the Server Manager, automatically it log on. I can open the Server Manager anytime through Run window or through Start window. So coming back to our step now, before we are doing a step, let me give you a small trick. Currently it is showing the time zone as US, so I need to change it to the India. From here also I can directly change it. Let's say I can change it by 5:30 over here. So I can change it to India over from here also, but I will just give you a small trick over here. Many of you must be knowing it also. Through PowerShell I'm just changing the time zone. Okay, so PowerShell, let me see, administrator PowerShell, let me see whether it is giving me option to change the time zone, because I have not started it with admin console, but let's see. So you just need to type this command, set time zone and then India Standard Time, enter, and yes, now it has changed to my Indian time. Anyway, just it's a small command from the PowerShell. Now let's come back to our main step. So we need to change the host name. So there are 2-3 ways through which you can change the host name. So one is through your system properties. From here you can directly click on rename this PC. Another one is go to advanced system setting, computer name, and change it from here. So I'm just opting this way, and I will change it as okay, and just say okay. It will ask for the restart, so I'm just saying okay and restart now. So it will restart in a minute. It will not take more than a minute. As you can see, it is restarted instantly. Just logging through administrator, and we will check now whether it has actually changed our hostname or not. So you can see over here the device name it is showing as Windows 2022 HYP. Okay. Next step is on our Windows 2022 base, that is our physical machine. Make sure that you are having an internet access enabled. Okay, so on our base machine, this is my base machine, I'm having an internet access. So you can see over here network internet access. I'm having my broadband connectivity on this machine directly. Okay. Now next step is through our physical machines Hyper-V console. Physical machines Hyper-V console, we need to create one switch, that is an external switch. How to do that? Now open your Hyper-V manager console and right click on Hyper-V hostname and select the virtual switch manager. So on my physical machine, this is my physical machine's Hyper-V console. This is my physical machine's hostname. Right click and say virtual switch manager. Now on virtual switch manager window, select external and click create virtual switch. So I will select the external, I will say create virtual switch. So now it says provide appropriate name to external virtual switch and click apply, yes and OK. So I'm just giving the name as, let's say, EXT, that is for external. And now before clicking apply OK, let me just give you a brief idea what is external switch. So it is actually allowing a sharing of your physical NIC's connectivity with the Hyper-V virtual machine. So my physical NIC, my physical machine's physical NIC is currently connected to broadband, that is internet. So I can share that internet connectivity with my virtual machines inside my Hyper-V. So this external switch is nothing like a bridge between my external connectivity and my virtual machines connectivity. Okay, so I will just say external, so it will create one switch. For a minute it will disconnect my internet and again it will come back. So if I'm saying apply, so pending changes may disrupt your network connectivity, I will say yes. You can see the network connectivity gone. For a minute, again it came back. Now I have created the external switch. I will just say OK. Now next is open Windows 2022 HYP VM setting window through Hyper-V Manager console and click on Add Hardware Network Adapter. Now we have created the external switch. Now we need to map it to our Windows 2022 HYP VM. So I will go to that VM, I will go to the settings of it, and as you can see the network adapter is already added but it is showing not connected. By the time if you are creating a new virtual machine, as you remember we have selected not connected. So what I will do is, no need to add because it is already added the network adapter, but I will select the now our switch EXT which we have just created. Okay, we'll just say EXT and this step select the external switch from the drop down menu and click apply OK. So I will just select the external switch over here, apply OK. Now next step is, once we are mapping our external switch to our VM, we need to check whether the internet connectivity is enabled on our virtual machine or not. So on Windows 2022 HYP VM, click on yes to acknowledge the new network adapter connectivity with internet access. So we will go back to our VM now, and we can see over here that my VM is also having the internet access now. Okay, now this particular window, sometimes it is asking, sometimes it is not asking. That's okay, but we are having an internet access on our VM also. So this step is completed. The next step is, on Windows 2022 HYP VM, open Server Manager and click on Add Roles and Features. Okay, so our Windows 2022 HYP, that is our virtual machine, I will just open the Server Manager. Okay, and I will click on Add Roles and Features. Remember, this is a virtual machine, Windows 2022 HYP. Try to remember the host names to avoid the confusion. So on before you begin an installation type, Windows, click next. So first couple of windows we need to just click next. This is a summary. Installation type role base, click on next. Next step is, on server selection window, make sure that the server manager is showing the correct VM's correct host name and ISP, internet public IP. As you can see over here, it is showing the host name correct, but it is showing the local IP. But don't worry about it, this is an internet router's IP, because I am having a broadband router at my home, so it is showing a local IP for that router, and the router is further connected to my ISP broadband. So invariably this is an internet connectivity IP only. So this shows okay. I will just say next. Now next step is very important, that on the server roles window, select Hyper-V server role, add features, and note down the error. Now I have specified this step deliberately. Remember, this is our virtual machine, this is not a physical machine. On a virtual machine we are now trying to install the Hyper-V role. So let's say I will just click on Hyper-V and I will say add features. And you can see straight away it is giving us a validation errors that Hyper-V cannot be installed, the processor does not have a required virtualization capabilities. Okay, because inside virtual machine we are trying to enable the hypervisor or trying to install the Hyper-V role. Okay, so I want you guys to see this error. That's why I have just deliberately made that particular step also within our PPT slides. That's okay. So we have taken the note of this. I will say okay. Let's see what can be done next. So next step is, click OK, cancel, close the server manager window and shut down the Windows 2022 HYP VM completely. Okay, so I will say cancel over here. I will close down everything. I will shut down this VM also. So this particular HYP is completely turned off now. Okay, let's move on to the next step. Next step is on Windows 2022 base system, that is our physical machine, open PowerShell ISC console with admin access. So on my physical machine, I will just open PowerShell ISC, right click on it and say run as an administrator. I'll just say yes. Okay. Next, we need to execute one PowerShell command as shown in sideline figure. What is that command? So command is set VM processor -VM name. Our VM name is Win 2022 HYP. Then expose virtualization extensions is equal to true. Okay, so we are exposing or we are extending our Windows 2022 Hyper-V VM's capabilities for the virtualization extensions. Okay, so this command is for that purpose. So what I will do is I will just copy this command straight away from this slide only. Copy, and now I will go to my PowerShell window. I'll just paste it. Okay. Now remember, before executing this command, you need to put off your VM. Otherwise, this command will not work, or it will give some error that VM needs to be in shutdown state. So now I am executing this particular command, and now you can see that command is completed successfully since there is no error message as such through PowerShell window. So we will come back to our slide for the next step. So next step is we will start the Windows 2022 HYP VM, which is in shutdown mode right now, and we will open the server manager to install our Hyper-V role. So add roles and features. So I'm going back to my Win22 HYP VM. It will just take 1 minute to start. I'm logging through administrator. Okay. And now the step suggests that we need to open the server manager and add roles and features. One more time we will try to install the Hyper-V role. So open the server manager. Again I am telling this is our virtual machine, okay, not the physical machine. So add roles and features. So next step is on before you begin an installation type Windows screen, we need to click next. So first couple of windows before you begin an installation type. So let it be the default options selected over here. So I will just say next for both the options. Next steps on server selection window, make sure that the server manager is showing the VM's correct host name and ISP, that is public or internet ISP. So as I have already told you, my host name is showing correctly and this is my internet IP, although it is showing as an internal IP. It is my router's IP which is connected to further to my ISP internet, so it is invariably my internet IP. Okay, because we have just added external switch only, no other active network connectivity is there. So this hostname and IP address is showing correct. I'm just clicking next. So next step is on server roles window, select Hyper-V server role and then click on add features and click next. Now last time when we tried to install it got us to the error. Now let's see now what happens. So Hyper-V I am selecting and I am selecting add features. So now as you can see, Hyper-V role is getting installed. This is inside virtual machine. I'm again telling you, this is inside our Windows 2022 HYP virtual machine. So Hyper-V is selected. Next. So next step is on features window, select .NET Framework 3.5 and ASP.NET 4.8 and click next. Sorry. So I'm selecting .NET Framework 3.5 and 4.8. Now this .NET is in general is an feature which is requiring for MMCs, any kind of an server roles to function properly. So it's a general requirement. It's not related to your Hyper-V nested virtualization as such, but for any particular MMC to run smoothly, usually the .NET framework is required. So I'm invariably installing it by default way. I'm just selecting it as of now. I will say next. So next is on Hyper-V window, click next. So this is just a note down in general concept as such, so we don't need to do anything over here. I will just say next. Next step on virtual switches wizard, we not required to select anything as of now. We will configure our virtual networking later on, so we will see. So I'm just deselecting this one, say next. Next step on migration and default stores windows, click next. We don't require to go for any migration or default states values, so I'm just clicking on next. Now here also I'm clicking on next. Next is on confirmation window, we need to specify alternate source path, and the path will be like our DVD drive or ISO for Windows servers, then sources and SSX. So why do we require it? I will just explain it in a while. So click on specify an alternate source path and go to your Explorer. DVD drive is already mapped. This is our server DVD drive. Go to sources, go to SSX. Copy this path and paste it. Why do we require this? Because .NET Framework 3.5 and 4.8 requires some additional installation files from your OS source ISO. So that locates at sources SSX folder. So unless you are specifying that particular alternate path, this one, the installation might fail for ASP.NET and 3.5 and ASP.NET 4.8. Okay, so we have selected it, and now we'll go back to our slide. So finally on main confirmation window, we can click on install. So I will say install. So as of now, three features are getting installed: .NET Framework 3.5, ASP.NET 4.8 and Hyper-V, along with the Hyper-V management tools and your Hyper-V console. Okay, so it will take just a minute to install those features, and then we will proceed with the next step. So as you can see now, the installation got completed, but a restart is pending since we have installed the Hyper-V role. So as same as the physical machine, on virtual machine also, once you install your Hyper-V role, it is requiring a restart. Okay, so let's go down to our slide. So next step is, once required roles and features got installed, click on close and restart Windows 22 HYP system once. So I will just say close. As you can see over here, the start is pending. So I will close everything and I will restart the machine once. So once you are restarting, your RDP session is also getting disconnected. So it's okay, it will reconnect. Problem. We'll go to our Hyper-V console. As you can see now, the updates and features are getting installed. So I'm logging with the administrator one more time after the restart. Now let's move on to the next step. Next step is, through Windows 2022 base, that is our physical machine, Hyper-V console, go to the Windows 2022 HYP VM setting, click on SCSI controller, hard drive and add. So we need to add one more hard drive over here for our VM, Windows 2022 HYP VM, because we need to store our nested VMs into that secondary storage. So click on settings. So as of now, you can see only one hard drive is there for Windows 22 HYP. So I will click on SCSI controller, click on hard drive and click on add. Okay, next step. So click on new before you begin. Next, dynamically expanding, specify VHDX name and location and click next. So there are 2-3 steps we need to follow over here. So in the hard drive file, we will click on new. On before you begin, we will click next. On choose your disk type, so I will choose dynamically expanding instead of fixed size. What is the difference between fixed size and dynamically expanding? The fixed size is immediately wrapping up your actual physical hard disk space. Let's say कि I am creating one VHDX of 100 GB, and if I am selecting fixed drive, it will immediately take up 100 GB from my physical machine or my physical hard disk. But we don't require that. Dynamically expanding means the total capacity is 100 GB only, but it will take up only that much storage which is getting utilized under the VHDX. So let's say my VHDX is only having 15 GB of data, although its total capacity is 100 GB, but on actual physical machine it will utilize only 15 GB out of 100 GB. Okay, so this is a useful feature. So I'm selecting dynamically expanding, I'm clicking next. Now I need to give the name for this virtual hard disk. So just for understanding purpose, I will give like Win2022 HYP underscore D, capital we will see. Okay, now the location we need to change. We don't want to go for the default location, so we will go to the same folder where we have already created our VM. Under that, again one more time, and then under the virtual hard disk, this is the default path for any VM's virtual hard disk, and then say select folder. Why we required to choose the virtual hard disk folder? Because next time if I'm importing this particular virtual machine, it will automatically take up disk number 1, 2, 3 if all the virtual hard disks are on a same location. Okay, so this is the default location for storing virtual hard disk for Microsoft Hyper-V. Okay, and I will say next. Coming back to our slide, now specify the VHDX size as 100 GB and click next. So we will specify our VHDX secondary partition space as 100 GB. Now if you don't have any particular space within your that secondary partition, you can choose any of the available space from the available partitions, but we are not selecting that option as of now. So let it be the default location J drive, that is external drive. So 100 GB is okay for us. I will say next. Now next step is verify the summary and click finish, apply, OK. So what we have done, we have created one VHDX file which is dynamically expanding, which will be mapped to our Win22 HYP VM as an this is the name of this VHDX, and the location is the same where our actual VM is residing. Okay, and the size is 100 GB. So this is the summary. Everything looks fine. Just clicking finish. Okay, and now apply. Okay. Coming to the next step. Now through Windows 2022 HYP system, open disk management. Now we have mapped this particular disk to our Windows 2022 HYP system, but we haven't configured it in our Windows. So we will go for it. I will right click on the start menu and go to disk management. This is the simplest way to go to the disk management. You can go through the server manager also, but it's okay. Now you can see over here the disk 1 which we have just added. It is in offline mode, it is in unallocated mode, it is on unknown mode. So the disk is not yet initialized. So we will do it step by step. So next step is right click on your CD-ROM drive, click on change drive later option. So why we require to change the drive of our CD-ROM drive? Because we want to assign the D drive later to this secondary disk, but it is already occupied by CD-ROM. So we'll change it. I'll change to E drive, but that is on next step. Okay, so we'll go step by step. So change the CD-ROM 0 drive later from D to E and click on OK. Yes. So I'll change it to E and say OK. It will give some kind of a general warning. I will say yes. So now you can see CD-ROM drive is showing as E drive. Let's go back to the next step. So next step is right click on disk 1, that is our secondary disk which we have just added, and click on unknown and click online. So we will first make it as online. So disk 1 which is in offline mode and unknown mode, I will right click over here, not here, sorry, here, and I will say online first. So currently now it is not showing offline, it is showing unknown and not initialized. So next step is right click on the disk one more time, and which is showing as not initialized, and click on initialize disk. Okay, so I will just right click and initialize disk. Okay, and I will say OK over here. So now it is showing online also, it is showing initialize also, but it is showing unallocated space as 100 GB or 99.98 GB. Okay, so we will move on to the next step. So on initialize disk window, click OK, that we have already done, and right click on the disk 1 unallocated disk space, that is 100 GB, and click new simple volume. So already new simple volume. Okay, so it will open up your volume wizard. So next step is on new simple volume wizard, click next. Next we need to click on next thrice and then click finish to complete the volume format wizard. It's a straightforward procedure. It is showing your 100 GB space. Now it will automatically take the D drive because we have already released the D drive from the CD-ROM. So the available letter is D drive. I will say next. Format this volume. So NTFS default allocation size and the volume label I can change it over here. So just for our understanding purpose, I will make it like this. Okay, and perform a quick format. So this is fine, and I will say finish. So now you can see the D drive is ready. Okay, going back to our slide. So next step is through Windows Explorer, go to the newly created D drive and create a folder called Win10CL. Okay, this is for storing our nested VM into that particular folder. So I will close this. I'll go to Windows Explorer and here I can see the new D drive. I will double click. I will create one more folder, new folder called Win10CL. Okay, this is for storing our new virtual machines content over here, nested virtual machine. Understand? Okay. So what is the next step? So through Windows 2022 HYP system, open Hyper-V Manager console and right click server hostname new virtual machine. So now we are about to create the nested virtual machine. Remember, this is a virtual machine. Win 2022 HYP is a virtual machine on which we have installed our Hyper-V role. So I'm just opening the Hyper-V Manager. First I will pin to taskbar, click on it, right click on it and say new virtual machine. Okay. Next step is on before you begin window, click next. So first window is always a default window. I will say next over here. Next is on specify name and location window, provide VM name and appropriate VM storing location as D drive Win10CL and click next. So over here I will just give the name as Win10CL. This is just a generic name I have just given, Windows 10 client. And I will say store. I will not go for the default path. Go to browse, go to D drive and the folder which we have created inside it, select folder. Okay, so our Win10CL will be getting stored on D drive, Win10CL. Okay, and I will say next. So next step is on specify generation window, select generation 2 and click next. So it's a straightforward procedure what we have done earlier also. So this particular nested VM is also Windows 10, the latest one. So I'm selecting the generation 2 as the latest format and I will say next. So next step, step number 70. So on assign memory window, specify memory as 16 GB and click next. So if you remember, our virtual machine Windows 2022 HYP virtual machine is having how much of RAM? Total 96 GB of RAM. Okay, let's verify it. Just a minute. You can see the Windows 2022 HYP and how much RAM it is showing, 96 GB. Although this is a virtual RAM, but still 96 GB it is showing. So out of this virtual RAM 96 GB, I am assigning 16 GB to Windows 10 CL. So 16 GB comes to 1600 384 MB if I am not wrong. This is 16 GB I am assigning to Windows 10 CL machine. Okay, I will say next. Next step is on configure networking window, leave the default value as not connected and click next. So as of now I am not configuring any network connectivity for our nested VM. We will do it later on. So as of now I am selecting not connected option. Say next. Next step is on configure virtual hard disk window. Make sure that it's showing correct VHDX storing path and specify the VHDX size value as 100 GB and click next. So as we can see, it has already taken our VM's name only for the VHDX also, and then the default path is D Win10CL Win10CL virtual hard disk. So this path is also correct. Only thing we need to change it over here is 127 GB to 100 GB. So 100 GB is sufficient for our base OS installation. Okay, and I will say next. So next step is on installation option windows, select install an operating system later option and click next. So as of now I am not installing any operating system into this nested VM. I am just selecting install an operating system later and say next. Next step is verify the summary and click finish. So we'll verify the summary one more time. Our nested VM's name is Win10CL, generation 2, total memory 16 GB, network we have not configured it yet, so not connected. Hard disk path is correct, D Win10CL and default virtual hard disk path. Now operating system we have not installed it yet, so will be installed at later times. I'm just clicking on finish. Okay, so our nested VM has been created, although no operating system, no network connectivity. We will do it step by step. Okay, so it is created as of now. Let's move on to the next step. So on Windows 2022 base, that is our physical machine, open Hyper-V Manager console, right click on Hyper-V hostname and select Virtual Switch Manager. Okay, so don't get confused between the Hyper-V Manager console of our Windows 2022 HYP and our base systems Hyper-V. This is a virtual machine running. We don't want to go for that one. We'll be going for our main Hyper-V, that is Windows 2022 base physical machines Hyper-V. Okay, so on this we need to right click on the host name and select the Virtual Switch Manager. So I'm right clicking it and say Virtual Switch Manager. Okay, next step is on Virtual Switch Manager window, select internal switch and click create virtual switch. Okay, now if you remember previously we have created one switch for the external connectivity. Now we will be creating one switch for the internal connectivity. So I will select internal and create virtual switch. So next is provide appropriate name to the internal virtual switch and click apply. OK. So I will just give a name as, let's say, internal. Okay, you can specify any name for your understanding, and the type of network is internal network. Okay, now I will say apply. Okay. Now next step is we need to add one more network adapter to our Windows 2022 HYP VM. So go to the Windows 2022 YPVM setting window through Hyper-V Manager console. Click on Add Hardware, Network Adapter and Add. So coming back to our physical machines Hyper-V console, this is our Windows 2022 HYP VM. I will go to the settings, and from the Add Hardware option I will select Network Adapter. Now why these two other options are showing as degraded or cannot be added? Because virtual machine is currently running, so these components can be added only when the virtual machine is off, but network adapter you can directly add it even if your VM is online. So that option is highlighted, so I will select that network adapter. I will say add. Now select internal switch from the drop down menu and click apply. OK. Now I will select internal, that is our internal switch. If you remember, we have given the external connectivity to our Windows 2022 HYP system. Now we are giving the internal connectivity between our physical machine and this Windows 2022 HYP machine. Okay, so I will select the internal switch which we have just created. I will say apply and OK. Now next is we need to assign the IP addresses. So for which machine and which network adapter we will see. So provide local IPs for both internal network adapters of Windows 2022 base and Windows 2022 HYP system. Now again I am repeating, Windows 2022 base is a physical machine and Windows 2022 HYP is a virtual machine. So let's start with the physical machine. So on physical machine, if I am going to the network and adapter options, change adapter options. So we have created two switches through Hyper-V console, if you remember. So for both the switches, it is creating one virtual adapter. So this is for the external connectivity and this is for the internal, as you can see in the bracket. So I will go to the properties of it and I will disable the version 6 and I will go to the IP4. Now what IP I need to give? This is for the Windows 2022 base system. Okay, so Windows 2022 base system, I have given the IP as 10.11.100. So coming back to this is a base system. Again I am just clearing your concept. This is a physical machine, so I am just giving one internal IP 10.11.100. So I am clicking this, it will automatically take the subnet mask. This is fine. I will say OK. OK. I will close this. And now next is same way I need to give the internal IP to my Windows 2022 HYP, that is my virtual machine. So I am going to that HYP console. This is my virtual machine. Okay, and I am going to network and internet settings, change adapter options. As you can see, this is external connectivity, it is already connected to internet, but this is the internal connectivity. I'm going to the properties of it, disabling IP6 as of now, and then go to the IP4. Now what IP I need to give? The same IP range over here. So the same IP range which we have given to our physical machine. So coming back to our this thing, so Win22 HYP, what IP address I have given? Here I have given 1.100, here I will give 1.200. So coming back to this console, here I will give 10.1.1.200. Okay, subnet mask it will automatically take. I will say OK. I will say OK. Close this also. Okay, now next step is something which is optional, but still it is working in that way that we need to turn off the Windows firewalls on both the systems, on your physical machine also and on your Windows 2022 HYP system also, so that the network connectivity will not get affected. Okay, so coming back to our main machine, I will open the control panel. Sorry. And I will go to Windows Defender Firewall. So as you can see, it is already disabled. Okay, if it is on, then disable it please as part of this particular step. So on physical machine it is already disabled. Let's go back to our Windows 2022 HYP system. Open the control panel. Small icons, Windows Defender Firewall. Here you can see the firewall is on, so I will go to turn Windows Firewall on and off, and I will off it for both the options, private as well as public network settings. I will say OK. Close this. Okay, so now next step, now we need to check the connectivity between both the systems. So test the network connectivity, ping test between Windows 2022 base and Windows 2022 HYP system. So what I will do is, on my physical machine I will open CMD. I will see what are the configuration for my IP. So IP config, you can see the internal IP is 10.1.1.100 and this is external IP, my ISP router IP. So we are not bothered about this as of now. So this is my internal IP 100, and if you remember what is the IP address we have given to the Win 2022 HYP, that is 200. So I will just ping 10.1.1.200, and as you can see I can ping the 200 from here. Let's ping it through hostname also. Let's see. It is pinging IP6, no problem. What we need to do is, now I will just add -4 over here. So now you can see it is pinging through my DNS name also as correct IP 10.1.1.200. Same way I need to now check the network connectivity through HYP. So I will open the CMD. I will first check my IP configuration. So my IP is 10.1.1.200. Now I will ping my physical machine's IP. So 10.1.1.100. It is pinging my physical machine, and I will ping through hostname also. So again it is taking the IP6 as a default one, so no problem. I will add -4. So you can see over here it is taking my router IP, no problem. Sometimes it is giving preference to my router IP. Okay, so if I'm pinging directly through my 10.1.1.100 also, it will automatically take it. Sometimes your local host or host config file is taking the other IPs, because it is already connected through my internet access. It is giving more preference to my router's IP, so that's fine. I will one more time I will try. Let's see. See, now it is taking 10.1.1.100. okay, so it will take some time, but ultimately the network connectivity will work. Okay, so now we have tested the network connectivity from both the machines to each other, vice versa. right? Now what we have done, that we have tested the network connectivity from Windows 2022 HYP to Windows 2022 base, and vice versa, Windows 2022 base to Windows 2022 HYP. Okay, let's move on to the next step. Now next step is we need to copy a Windows 10 ISO to Windows 2022 HYP VM, okay, locally, because we need to install the nested VM. So we need to install the Windows 10 OS on our nested VM. So I will go to my physical machine and I will go to my ISO path OS MS Windows 10 22H2 and then 22H2, and you can see this is the latest OS. Okay, so I will copy this ISO. Let's see whether it is giving me option to directly copy to my VM. It should give, because we have established our internal connectivity through each other, but I will show you the option. Okay, right click, I will create one folder over here in D drive of Windows 2022 HYP called ISO. And I will paste it. So as you can see, the ISO is getting copied. It will take some time, so I am as of now pausing this video. Once this ISO is getting copied completely, I will be back with our further steps. Okay, so as you can see, our ISO got completed. It has been copied to our Windows 2022 HYP system. Okay, let's move on to the next step. So through Windows 2022 HYP Hyper-V Manager, Win10 CL's VM settings, Windows, click on SCSI controller and DVD drive and we will add one DVD drive on our nested VM. Okay, so I will go to my HYP system, close this one also. Virtual machine is Windows 2022 HYP. Through that, our Hyper-V console and settings of Windows 10 CL. Over here I will go to SCSI controller, I will say DVD drive and I will say add over here. Okay, try to understand what I am doing. So on DVD drive window, select image file and map Windows 10 22H2 OS ISO and click apply. So I will select the image file. I will go to my D drive, not this one, sorry, D drive ISO and this particular Windows 10 ISO. Okay, and I will say apply. Next is still on VM settings window. Click on firmware and set the first boot device order as a DVD drive and click apply. OK. So this is on Windows 10 CL setting. This is nested VM. I will go to firmware, I will go to DVD drive, I will move up and I will say apply. OK. This is the first boot device I am setting as a DVD drive so that it can boot from our Windows 10 ISO. I will say OK. I will double click on it. Let's move on to the next step. So start the Windows 10 CL VM and install the Windows 10 22H2 version OS as usual. So I'm starting my nested VM. it should ask me to go for the CD DVD booting, which I have done by pressing enter. Now it is booting through my ISO, that is Windows 10 ISO. Okay, so I will start the OS installation as usual. I will say install now. I will accept the licensing and terms. Click on custom. You can see the 100 GB disk which we have specified, it is taking, and I will say next. So now the Windows 10 OS is getting installed on our nested virtual machine, which is Windows 10 CL. Okay, so I'm just cutting down this video as of now at this point of time. Once this OS installation is getting completed, I will come back with the further steps. Okay, remember that this is the OS installation is going on. Once it is completed, we will be enabling internet access also on this machine. Okay, so I'm just cutting down the video as of now for this point of time, and we will come back with the further update with the further steps. Okay, so welcome back. As you can see, our OS installation is about to complete. It is showing 97% as of now, so we will proceed with the further steps once the OS installation is done. So it will not take that much of a time. So as you can see, the steps are completed now, and the OS is about to complete its installation process. It is asking us for the restart, so I am clicking on restart now. Till the time it is restarting, I'm just clearing your concepts one more time. This is a Windows 2022 HYP, which is a virtual machine. Inside that we have installed the Hyper-V role. Through that Hyper-V, we have installed one more virtual machine, that is a nested virtual machine, which is on Windows 10 CL. That's why it is showing two consoles over here. So don't get confused. So if I am minimizing this console, I am coming to the Windows 2022 HYP Hyper-V console. If I am minimizing this one, I am coming to my physical machine. Okay, so going back to the nested virtualization machine. So Windows 10, it is getting ready. It will take a minute or so. So our Windows 10 CL machine is just rebooted couple of times. It is just about to start. So our Windows 10 CL nested virtual machine is just about to finish the OS setup. So I will choose my country over here. Yeah, keyboard layout, yes, skip. This is just an installation process, normal installation process. So as of now we don't have an internet, so I will say I don't have an internet. Continue with limited setup. Here it is asking us to create one local user so that it can log on to. In Windows 10, the local administrator account is by default disabled. So I will just create one local user so that at least we can log in and continue. Okay, just a minute. So this is just an generic name lam admin. I'm just giving a password. Just a minute. It is asking just security questions. So this is fine. Now our nested virtual machine OS should be ready. Let's accept. Sometimes it's annoying. So many inputs we need to just provide in order to just start a simple OS. So again it will do some kind of settings and all. So let's wait for this. So finally our Windows 10 CL nested virtual machine is ready. Okay, so as you can see over here, this is Windows 10 CL. Okay, if I'm just confirming, it is running on Microsoft Windows version 2022 H2 Windows 10. Okay, so let's move on to the next step now. So the next step is on Windows 2022 HYP system, open your Hyper-V Manager console and right click on Hyper-V hostname and select the Virtual Switch Manager. So I will minimize this Win 10 CL. I will come back to Windows 2022 HYP Hyper-V console. I will go to the Virtual Switch Manager. Okay. Next step is we need to create a virtual switch, which is an internal switch through Windows 2022 HYP system. So I will select the new virtual network switch. I will select internal and I will select create virtual switch. Next step is we need to provide an appropriate name for our internal virtual switch and click apply. OK. I'll just say INT. This is our internal network and say apply. OK. Next step is provide a local IP address to the Windows 2022 HYP systems Hyper-V internal network as shown in sideline figure. So we have created this particular switch, internal switch on Windows 2022 HYP. So as I said earlier, it will create one virtual adapter over here. So you can see over here the virtual adapter is created. Look, go to properties of it, and I will give an IP address like this, 10.1.2.200. Okay, so this way, 10.1.2.100. Okay, you can see over here I have just made the change on the network subnet part or network side. Previously we are using 10.1.1 series, now we are using 10.1.2 series. This is for the isolation one. So for the nested VMs, this particular series will be 10.1.2, and for the primary VMs it will be 10.1.1. okay, so I will just click on this. It will automatically take my subnet mask. I will say OK. I will say OK. So next step is we need to now add our internal switch to our Windows 10 CL machine. So open the Windows 10 CL VM settings window through Windows 2022 HYP Hyper-V Manager console and click on Add Hardware Network Adapter Add. So I'm coming back to my Windows 2022. Going to my Hyper-V console, I will go to the settings of Windows 10 CL, and the network adapter we have already added it, okay, while creating the VM, so no need to go for the add, it is already added. Next step is select the INT switch from the drop down menu and click apply OK. So I will select the INT, I will say apply, I will say OK. Now we have established the internal connectivity between Windows 2022 HYP and Win 10 CL system. Okay, so let's move on to the next step. So next step is we need to provide a local IP to Win 10 CL systems Hyper-V internal network as shown in the sideline figure. Okay. So let's move on to our Windows 10 HYP, and through which I need to go to Windows 10 CL machine. Okay, and now I will go to network settings. This is Windows 10 CL, mind you, change adapter options, and we need to give a local IP to this Win 10 CL system. Now what is the IP configuration we need to provide over here? We will see carefully through our PPT slide. So I will be giving a 10.1.2.201, and then subnet mask will be 255.0.0.0. Default gateway 10.1.2.200. okay, so I will be giving that one. So 10.1.2.201. okay, subnet mask it will automatically take. Default gateway 10.1.2.200, that will be our HYP machine's IP. In the preferred DNS server I will just give 8888. This is general internet DNS name, and additionally I will give 10.1.2.200 as an alternate DNS also. Okay, so we will re-verify this configuration is correct as per the slide. 10.1.2.201, 10.1.2.200, 8888, 10.1.2.200. okay, so Everything seems to be fine over here. I will just say OK. Yes. OK. Okay. So now I have given the IP address range over here for the internal IP address. Now let's move on to the next step. Step 95. So disable the Windows firewall on Windows 10 CL system. So on Windows 10 CL system, I think I have already disabled it, but let's verify it. Yes, it is already disabled, my Windows firewall, just to establish the network connectivity. Okay. Next step is we need to give the, on our base system, on our physical system, we need to assign one more IP address as 10.1.2.100 just to establish the connectivity between our nested VM and our physical Hyper-V host. Okay. So I will come back to my physical machine over here. This is my physical machine. And on my physical machine, I will go to the network and internet setting. I will go to change adapter options. I will go to the internal switch of Win 2022 base system. Okay, internal switch, and here I will go to IP4. It is already having one IP address, but I will give, that is for the one range, that is for the primary VM connectivity, but we need another IP address for the second range. So 10.1.2.100. okay, let me just see whether I am giving the correct IP address or not. Yes, 10.1.2.100. okay, subnet mask it will automatically take. I will say add. Okay, 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 thrice. Okay, I will close this one. Let's move on to the next step. Now next step is very important. Now as we have already discussed what is NAT and why it is required, we require to enable the internet access on our nested VM, right? So for that we need to create one NAT switch or NAT connectivity. So for that purpose we need to run one command on our Windows 2022 HYP system. Okay, so next step is on Windows 2022 HYP system, open PowerShell ISC with admin access and execute below command as shown in sideline figure. What is our command? So the command stands like this: new netnet -name, then name can be anything, but I'm just giving Win 2022 HYP, then internal IP interface address prefix 10.1.2.0/8. okay. Now what is the meaning of this whole command? I will just explain in a while, but let me just go back to the command PowerShell command line option over here. So what I will do is I will go back to my main slide and I will copy the whole command from here only, so that I don't have to type it again and again. I'm just copying it. Just give me a minute. So say copy, and I will go back to my Windows 2022 HYP system. I will minimize this Win 10 CL system. Sometimes it is confusing which VM console I have taken and all, but let's see. So Windows 2022 HYP, through which I will open the administrator PowerShell ISC command, which I have already opened it. Okay. Now I will paste this particular command over here. Okay. Now we will, before executing it, we will have a good look at this command, because this command is very important. Okay. So now what this command does, it is creating a new NAT interface, on our Windows 2022 HYP system. So this particular command is new net NAT, and then name of that NAT technology or NAT binding is Win 2022 HYP. This is not a VM name, this is the NAT name. Just to make you understand, I have created the NAT on Win 2022 HYP, so I have given the same name. Okay. Now on which network adapter I need to create that NAT? That is internal IP address. Why internal IP address? Because our nested VM Win10CL and our Win22 HYP VM, that is also Hyper-V, but these two Hyper-Vs, this Hyper-V host and this Hyper nested virtual machine nested VM is communicating through internal network or internal IP address range. So that's why I am creating a NAT between these two internal IP addresses range. Okay. And what is the prefix or what is the range that we have given to this internal communication between this Win22 HYP and nested VM? 10.1.2. okay, the first 3 octets, and I am just giving the whole range. 0/8 means whatever IP address I am giving after 2 up to 254. That means 10.1.2.1 to 10.1.2.254. Any IP address, this particular NAT binding will work. Okay. So this command stands for this one. Okay. I hope you're clear with this concept. If not, you can pause and reverse this video, and one more time you can listen to this explanation. So I am currently executing this command. Okay. So now I have enabled this NAT connectivity between my HYP Windows 2022 HYP and my Win10CL system. Okay. Let's go back to our slide. What is the next step? So kindly observe that Win10CL network adapter icon is now showing internet access. Okay, so let's see Win10CL. We will go to the Win10CL system and whether the network adapter is showing internet access or not. Let's see. So I will go to HYP first, minimize this. I will go to CL. This is my Win10CL system. Okay, now let's see whether it is showing me the internet connectivity or not. So as you can see on Win10CL system, it is showing internet access. Again I am repeating, Win10CL nested VM. Although if I am going to the network properties, change adapter options, I can see over here that I have given the internal IP address only. I have already given it in front of you, internal IP address only, but still it is getting the internet access through the NAT service. Okay. Now we will try to browse any of the site just to make you confirm that it is having an internal internet. Yes, you can see it's already started. So I will just go to google.com. And yes, it has started the internet access. So as you can see, I can browse through Win10 CL system. So this is how you can enable the internet access in nested virtual machine. Okay. So last step we have already done. Kindly start browsing internet from Win10 CL system. That is your nested VM. Okay. So I hope this video is informative to you. If you like this particular video, this is from the Swaroop IT Solutions video series. This is the video number 1. If you like this particular video, so please make sure to share it with your friends and subscribe to this channel. Okay. Thanks for watching this video. Have a good day.